What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Who Wants to Brawl YouTube channel. That is not a question, that is a statement. My name is Who, and I'm letting you know I want to brawl. Here, we're all about the Magic format Brawl, specifically in regards to Magic Arena, so we don't have to worry about budget, we only have to worry about wildcards.
This episode is a new deck tech. On these episodes, I go over a new Brawl commander and walk you through my ideas and strategies of how best to build this commander. Today's commander is going to be Extus, Oriq Overlord. It is a 2/4 legendary human warlock for 1 white and black. It has double strike and magecraft that says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It's also a double modal phase card with a back being Awaken the Blood avatar, which is a sorcery for 6 black-red. As an additional cost to cast it, you may sack any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 colorless less to cast for each creature sacked this way. And it says each opponent sacks a creature, create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. So with this deck, we're going to need a decent amount of instants and sorceries in order to trigger Extus' ability. Creatures, preferably that sacrifice themselves, to get back for value with its ability. And then creatures that help populate the board, that give us sacrifice fodder for Awaken the Blood avatar. I was really excited for this commander, and it turned out to be even more of a challenge than I thought it would be. Extus turns out to be the hardest deck I've built to play. All the different decisions that we have to make over the course of a game can very quickly lead to a loss that we don't understand what we did wrong. And it's a very delicate balance between casting creatures, casting spells, or sacrificing our creatures. Overall though, this is a fun deck, and I'm excited for this one. So with that, let's begin. The first topic we're going to talk about today are cheap creatures. This deck needs creatures in the graveyard, so having cheap creatures that die quickly will help the deck run. Also, having cheap creatures will help us cast Awaken the Bloodlord easier, allowing us to finish our opponents off. Heartfire Immolator is great in this deck because it sacrifices itself to deal damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, putting itself in the graveyard and allowing us to get it back with Extus' ability. Leonin Lightscriber is a great card in this deck. It synergizes very well with Extus' ability, being the same trigger, and pumps our board a little bit to swing in for lethal. And then Seasoned Swiftblade is a great card because we can give it indestructible by discarding that creature card that we're going to get back later. Silverquill Silencer is great because we can name our opponent's commander, and then whenever they cast it, we draw a card and they lose 3 life. It's also a low impact card in our deck, but it draws out removal from our opponents very fast, so that way they don't eliminate the things we don't want them to. Valki, God of Lies, is a 2-mana creature that gets rid of a creature in their hand. This can be a major setback for our opponent and help us to stabilize early. Alseid of Life's Bounty and Selfless Savior are each creatures that sacrifice to give protection in some way. The Selfless Savior gives indestructible, and for 1 mana, the Alseid gives protection from the color of our choice. And then Discordant Piper is a great sacrifice outlet for Awaken the Bloodlord. It leaves behind a body, allowing us to have another creature to sacrifice for a second Awaken the Bloodlord. Keep in mind that the tokens Awaken the Bloodlord creates are not legendary. Our next strategy is going to be Adventures. These are cards that are both creatures and instants or sorceries, allowing us to have a creature in the graveyard off of Extus' triggered ability to get back, and also allowing us to have a spell that triggers Extus' ability. Order of Midnight has an adventure that for 2 mana we can return a creature from our graveyard to our hand. With Extus, this allows us to get 2 creatures back, and at that point, it's pretty much over for our opponents. Foulmire Knight has an adventure that for 3 mana, we can draw a card and lose a life at instant speed, and it itself is a 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch. This is great all game long. It gives us a creature to sack that's fairly low impact, but also holds our opponent off with that Death Touch. And then Bonecrusher Giant is just arguably one of the best cards ever printed. 2 mana to do 2 damage to a creature at instant speed. That will get us our creature back. And itself is a 3 mana 4/3 that when it's targeted, it deals 2 damage to the controller. Murderous Rider has Swift End that destroys a creature or planeswalker and we lose 2 life. and itself is a 3 mana 2/3 with lifelink. If we want to get it back, its dies trigger goes on the stack, so if we can cast an instant with Extus on the board, we can get Murderous Rider back, but we have a very narrow window to do it. And then Giant Killer is 3 mana, destroy a creature with power 4 or greater, and itself is a 1 mana 1/2 that taps a creature down for 2 mana. And then Realm-Cloaked Giant is a last ditch board wipe when we need it to, and a 7 mana 7/7 vigilance when we don't. Our next topic we're going to be talking about is removal. It's necessary for any Brawl deck. However, for this deck, we also get double use off of it, as most of our removal is cheap spells, which allows us to trigger Extus' ability and get back another creature. For 1 mana, Bloodchief Thirst can take out a creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, and if we kick it for 3 extra mana, it can take out any creature. Frostbite and Shock are each 1 mana, deal 2 damage to a creature. Shock can do it to a player as well. Frostbite also gets a boost to 3 damage if we control 3 or more snow permanents. And then for 3 mana, Demon Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, but if we foretell it, that can only be 1 red instead. Casting all of these for 1 is very important. Being able to play Extus on turn 5, play a land, then play one of these, gets us back a creature and overwhelms our opponent. And then of course Storm's Wrath is just a 4 mana spell that deals 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, a nice board wipe in our deck. Eliminate can take out any creature or planeswalker at instant speed with converted mana cost 3 or less. Eat to Extinction can exile any creature or planeswalker at instant speed. It also has the upside of being able to put something in our graveyard from the top of our library, help us fix our next draw, maybe even put a creature into our graveyard for Extus' ability to bring back. And Feed the Swarm can take out any creature or enchantment, and we lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Rip Apart is an efficient removal spell. For 2 mana, we can do 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker, or destroy an artifact or enchantment. And then Shredded Sail is one of my pet cards in the format. It's 2 mana instant to destroy an artifact, deal 4 damage to a creature with flying, or we can cycle it for 2 mana. Our final strategy is going to be utility pieces / bigger creatures. In this deck, they happen to be the same thing, just about, so I combined them into one strategy. Our first utility piece is Arcane Signet. It's a format staple, 2 mana artifact, taps to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Hunt for Specimen is a new card from Strixhaven. It's a 2 mana sorcery that creates a 1/1 pest that has, when it dies, we gain 1 life. It also has Learn, which Brawl does not allow as sideboard, so we can't fish anything out of our sideboard with it, but it does allow us to discard a card and draw a card. And discarding a creature card we don't need now but can get back later in the game is vital. This also triggers Extus' ability and gives us a creature to sacrifice for Awaken the Bloodlord later in the game. Malakir Rebirth is a 1 mana instant that says we lose 2 life, and the next time target creature will be put into our graveyard, we return it to the battlefield instead. It also comes with the upside of being able to be played as a land in a pinch as well. And then Thrill of Possibility is a 2 mana instant that we can discard a card and then draw 2 cards. And then Village Rites is a 1 mana instant that we can sack a creature and draw 2 cards. Both of these have an interesting rules-based interaction that allows us to get back the card we discard or sacrifice with them when Extus' ability triggers, because they're already in the graveyard as a result of them being part of the cost rather than the ability. It's a weird rules interaction, but it works. Luminous Broodmoth is great when using Awaken the Bloodlord. As long as we don't sacrifice the Luminous Broodmoth, we get pretty much every card that's not a token in our deck back. None of them have flying, and at that point, our opponents pretty much just automatically resign. Stormkiln Artist ramps us every time we cast an instant or sorcery. Very useful in this deck because casting Awaken the Bloodlord over and over does cost a lot of mana, and Stormkiln Artist helps with that. And then Sedgemoor Witch gives more fodder for Awaken the Bloodlord every time we cast an instant or sorcery. We get a 1/1 pest creature token. The Ward and Menace is also pretty nice on it. Our opponent's taking care of this, we know is going to drain them 3 life. Demon's Disciple is just a 3 mana 3/1 that when it enters the battlefield, each player sacks a creature or planeswalker. This is a nice creature to get back with Extus because it automatically puts a creature in our graveyard when it enters the battlefield. And then when Extus is on the battlefield, we trigger Extus' ability, and then we can get Demon's Disciple back. Solemn Simulacrum is just a great card, especially to have in a 3-mana deck. It helps fix our mana, helps us ramp, and then draws a card when it dies. Additional value for a deck that wants to sacrifice creatures. Overall, a great card in the deck. And then Skyclave Apparition is a 3-mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, we can exile a permanent our opponent controls with CMC 4 or less. And then when it leaves the battlefield, they get a token with power and toughness XX, where X is the exiled card's mana value. Just a generically good card to have in any deck. It also has a couple ways of not giving a token back at all. If we exile their commander and they instead decide to move it to the command zone, they don't get a token. And if we have something like Village Rites and sacrifice it while its first ability is on the stack, the second ability gives them a token without having exiled the first thing, meaning it doesn't get a token at all. It's a weird rules interaction, but it's an old one and a good one, and it's efficient. And finally, we have to talk about our lands. In a 3-color deck, it is vital to get the proper mana base that we need in order to cast the spells we need to cast as we cast them. First up, we're going to have all 3 modal double-face lands that are available to us. These are lands that don't enter the battlefield tapped, and you can tap them for the mana you choose as they enter the battlefield. You have the red-white one in Needle Verge Pathway, which can also be Pillar Verge Pathway, tapping for white. And then you have the white one, Bright Climb Pathway, that taps for white, or Grim Climb Pathway, which taps for black. And then we have the black front face one, which is Blight Step Pathway, which can be played at the back for red, and Sear Step Pathway. And then we're going to have each one of our Snow Dual lands with Alpine Meadow, Snowfield Sinkhole, and Sulphurous Mire. And then we're also going to have each of our temples, being Temple of Triumph, Temple of Silence, and Temple of Malice. Each enter the battlefield tapped. Tap for 2 of our colors, and we can scry 1 when they enter the battlefield. Command Tower taps to add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Fabled Passage, tap and sacks to go get a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield. Then it has the upside of if we control 4 or more lands, that land untaps. Savai Triome taps to add 1 mana of any. Savai Triome taps to add 1 mana of any color that we need. We can also cycle it for 3 mana. However, if we're cycling for 3 mana, I'm assuming we're pretty far behind and you're probably going to lose that game anyway. We're also going to count Kazuul's Fury as a land in this deck. It taps to add a red and enters the battlefield tapped, but on the front face side, it's a 3 mana instant that we can sacrifice a creature and then deal damage to any target equal to the sack creature's power. Furry Column Snarl taps to add a red or white, and when it enters the battlefield, we can reveal a mountain or plains from our hand. If we don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. And then Shine Shadow Snarl does the same thing, except with plains or swamp, and white and black mana. And then we're going to end with 3 of each snow-covered plains, mountains, and swamps. The final thing we're going to do before we head out is we're going to upgrade our deck. Inevitably after playing, there's something that didn't work as well as I thought it would, that we can swap out for something better, and Extus is no different. However, there isn't much to swap. We only have 1 card to swap out, and that is Valki, God of Lies, for Elite Spellbinder. When I put the deck together, I thought, oh, Valki is a great 2-mana creature. However, I forgot that Extus' ability does not get legendary creatures back from our graveyard. This has burnt me multiple times, and so we will swap it out for Elite Spellbinder, which is going to be a great slow our opponent down card. It's also a great card to get back with Extus' ability, because we'll end up taxing 2 cards, 3 cards, and 4 cards, or however many we need in order to win. So that does it for Extus Oriq Overlord. What did you think? Do you think you want to give this deck a shot? Would you make different changes to it than I made? Let me know in the comments below. I will say that I greatly underestimated how difficult of a commander Extus would be to pilot. Between all the decisions of when to play creatures, when to play spells, which side of him to play, it was a very difficult deck to build and a very difficult deck to pilot. So I would like to know how successful you are when you play this deck. Let me know. And that does it for this video. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, share with a friend to help the channel grow, hit that bell icon to make sure you get notifications about new videos to make sure you don't miss anything. I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Rob Slota for making the Who Wants to Brawl logo. He's a tattoo artist, and you can check out his Instagram by following the link in the show notes below. You can email me at whowantstobrawl@gmail.com. My Twitter is @brawlwho. I also stream on Magic Arena at twitch.tv/whowantstobrawl. Check me out on Sundays at 11 in the morning, where I stream last week or next week's deck tech. On Mondays, I stream random decks. Sometimes I do Brawl, sometimes I'll even throw in a draft. I also stream a random day of the week, or at least I try to. This is Random Games. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll let you know when I'm going to play ahead of time and what I'm going to play ahead of time. But for now, this is Who letting you know I no longer want to brawl. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.